Okay, think about this for a second. There's an animal that lives in every single ocean on this planet, from the freezing poles to the warm tropics, and it sits at the absolute top of the food chain, no question. In fact, it's the most widespread mammal on Earth right after us humans. So yeah, let's dive in and get to know this master of the sea, the orca. Even its name sounds heavy. Orcinus orca. It comes from Latin, from Orcus, who was the Roman god of the underworld. Yep, the god of death. That's what they named this animal after. They saw it as this fierce, unstoppable force. One Roman writer, Pliny the Elder, called it an enormous mass of wild flesh with teeth. What a description, right?
And for centuries, that reputation just stuck. Killer whale. That name probably came from Spanish sailors who saw them hunting. Old whalers had their own name for them too, spekehugger, which basically means blubber hugger, because, well, they were known for tearing blubber right off of bigger whales. But that is not the whole story. Not even close.
And right here we get our first big surprise. This so-called killer whale isn't actually a whale. Nope. Biologically speaking, it is the largest, most powerful dolphin in the world. And that's a really important distinction because it puts them in a family that is famous for being incredibly smart and having these super complex social lives. So what is going on inside that giant head? I mean, really, if we want to understand the orca, we've got to look at the brain, the hardware it's running on. And let me tell you, what scientists have discovered, it's just mind-blowing. Okay, check this out. An adult orca's brain can weigh up to 6 kilograms. That's about 13 pounds. It's the second biggest brain of any animal on the planet. Only the sperm whale has a bigger one. Just to give you some perspective, our human brains are around 1.3 kilos. But, size isn't everything. And this is where it gets really fascinating. So this table shows something called the gyrification index. It's a fancy term for how wrinkly a brain is. Think of it like this. More wrinkles, more surface area, more room for neurons. And that means way more processing power. And would you look at that? An orca's brain is more than twice as wrinkly as a human brain. That points to just an incredible ability for complex thought. And it gets even deeper. Buried inside that super complex brain, orcas have this highly developed area that in humans, is linked to our deepest feelings. We're talking empathy, compassion, even our sense of who we are. The fact that this part of their brain is so big, it really suggests they have a rich emotional life. Maybe one that's a lot more like ours than we ever imagined. And here's the proof in the pudding, right? This is the classic mirror test. It's a big deal for figuring out if an animal is self-aware. You put a mark on them somewhere they can only see in a mirror. If they look in the mirror and then touch the spot on their own body, bam, they get that the reflection is them. And orcas, they pass this test no problem. They're in an elite club with great apes, elephants, and a few clever birds like this magpie. They know who they are. Okay, so we've established they're self-aware, they're emotional, but here's the thing. An orca is never just an orca. Its whole life, its entire identity is wrapped up in its family and its culture. And this leads to one of the most sophisticated social structures you will find anywhere in the animal world.
So orca society, it's all about the matriarch. She's the boss, the older, wiser female leader. And her kids, both sons and daughters, and then her daughter's kids, they all stick with her for their entire lives. I mean, these family bonds are unbelievably strong. Can you imagine spending your whole life, every day, with your mom, your brothers and sisters, your aunts, your grandma? For an orca, that's just life.
But wait, it's not like all orcas are the same. Not at all. Up in the North Pacific, for instance, scientists have found at least 3 totally different groups, or ecotypes. It's probably easier to just think of them as different cultures. So you've got the residents, who stick to the coast and eat fish. Then there are the transients, who roam around hunting other marine mammals. And then there are the offshore orcas. They're pretty mysterious, living out in the deep water. They all share the same ocean, but they have different food, different family structures, different hunting tricks. And get this, they don't mix. They don't hang out, they don't interbreed. They're like completely separate nations.
And a huge part of what keeps these cultures separate is language. Each family pod has its own special dialect of clicks and whistles and calls. And this isn't something they're born with, it's learned. A baby orca basically just babbles, but over years, it learns the unique vocal traditions of its family. It's a language that says, this is who I am, this is my family.
So you take that incredible intelligence, you mix in those unbreakable family bonds and that deep culture, and what you get are some of the smartest, most creative hunting strategies ever seen. anywhere.
Just look at this wave washing technique they do down in Antarctica. This isn't just about being big and strong. This is about physics and teamwork. The whole pod swims in perfect formation to create a massive wave, timed just right to wash a seal right off an ice floe into the waiting jaws of a podmate. It's a coordinated multi-step attack plan, and they pull it off perfectly.
And then there's this move, which is just wow. Down in Argentina, some orcas have figured out how to intentionally beach themselves. They ride a wave right up onto the sand to snatch sea lion pups. This is super risky, a high-risk, high-reward play. If they mess it up, they could die. And it's not instinct, it's a skill that mothers have to teach their kids patiently for years. It's a perfect example of culture, passing down a very difficult, very specialized tradition.
But maybe the ultimate show of their dominance is how they hunt great white sharks. Yeah, you heard that right. They work as a team to flip the shark upside down, which kind of paralyzes it. And then, like surgeons, they remove and eat only the liver. It is so effective and so terrifying that after an attack, other great whites will just disappear from the area, sometimes for a whole year.
And their appetite? It's legendary. Seriously. Just to give you an idea of what they can put away, there's this old story from Denmark, way back in 1861. A big male orca got stranded, and when they examined its stomach, they found what was left of 14 seals and 13 porpoises. Just unbelievable. A true display of power from the ocean's ultimate apex predator.
So, let's recap. We've got a super intelligent animal with culture that's all about family and has zero natural predators. You know, it's hard not to see a little bit of ourselves in them, right? And that brings us to our own relationship with orcas, which is, well, it's complicated and often pretty controversial.
And this right here shows one of the biggest, most shocking differences between an orca's life in the wild and one in captivity. Look at the lifespan. Out in the ocean, a female orca can live to be 80, maybe even 90 years old, just like a human grandmother. But in captivity, that number plummets. It's drastically shorter, often just a fraction of what it's supposed to be.
And life in a tank brings a lot of other problems. You see that collapsed dorsal fin? That happens to almost all male orcas in captivity. It's a physical sign of a life lived without the vast, deep ocean. But maybe the worst part is the social damage, being torn away from those family pods that they're supposed to live with their entire lives. And here's a really chilling fact. There's not a single confirmed case of an orca killing a person in the wild. But in captivity, there have been several awful incidents. So, we're back where we started. We're looking at an animal with a brain wired for empathy, an animal that has culture, that teaches its children, and that knows its own face in a mirror. When we really look at the orca, it kind of forces us to look back at ourselves. And it makes you ask big questions, right? About what intelligence really is, what family means, and what freedom is worth, no matter what species you are.